Hello everyone, Achint here from Walson Education. If you're new here, we are a college consulting and SAE editing service specializing in undergraduate admissions in the United States, Canada, UK and other countries as well. Our mentors are students from the finest of universities in the world such as Ivy Leagues, Oxbridge and more. And if you want to set up a free initial consultation, email us at walsoneducation@gmail.com. One of our mentors will talk with you at length about your own application process, and let's see what we can do in helping you achieve your own college dream. With that out of the way, we are speaking today with Pranav Jain, a sophomore at Tufts University. Pranav is studying in international relations and data science at Tufts. He is a really, really cool guy and an extraordinary athlete as well. I am very excited to be bringing to you today this interview with him. And so, without further ado, let's speak with Pranav. Hi Pranav, thank you so much for talking to me.
Sure, it's great to be here, and it was fun helping you, so I don't mind doing this for more people.
So, why don't you tell me something about which college you're going to, what you're studying, how you ended up there?
Sure. So I'm a sophomore at Tufts studying data science and IR. I came into Tufts thinking that I wanted to major in applied physics and applied math, but then I transferred to the engineering school and started pursuing data science. And then I just realized that I do enjoy IR too. So I just thought, let's study both of them together. Yeah.
And when you were applying to colleges, so were you only considering the US? Did you also apply to a number of other places? Walk us through the thought process at the beginning.
For me, it was mostly the US, but I also had Canada in mind. What
Okay.
I was looking for specifically was a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to understand what I wanted to study. And the US gave me that flexibility. Canada also, to some extent, would give me that. So I was looking at a couple of colleges in Canada, but primarily the US.
And how did you narrow down on the universities you did apply to in America?
So I had a counselor who was helping me. He helped me. I went to Nirmal Agarwal, and he helped me create like a long list of 30, 35 colleges. And then and then we used to sit down and we used to discuss. I had to do some research about figuring out what sizes are these colleges, what's the acceptance rate. I had to create a list of a few reach colleges, of a few safety colleges, of a few match colleges. And then after doing that division, we started narrowing down. And the ones which I was very excited about, I had visited the US in October, which was right when I was applying. So I got to
Right.
visit, I think, six, seven, or eight colleges when I visited. So that gave me a better feel of the kind of place I want to be in. That I visited those colleges primarily to figure out which college I wanted to ED in because I was confused between a few choices. But visiting definitely helped me narrow down my ED choice, which was Tufts.
And what were the factors which tilted the scales of your ED choice in favor of Tufts?
Honestly, the best thing which I loved about Tufts was like for my ED college, what I was simply thinking was if I can think of any one factor, it may be a very small factor or a significant factor, but if I can think of one factor which tells me that I don't want to go to this college, I thought I want ED in it. And
Right.
surprisingly and fortunately at Tufts, I couldn't find even one reason to say no to it. Like in terms of size, its location, its flexibility, the people. Um, I was confused between. I really enjoyed Pomona too, but I remember the admissions director of Pomona told me that we have three kinds of students. We have nerds, hyper nerds, and super nerds. So if you fall into that category, you should apply ED. Otherwise, it's better that you apply RD or you apply to Claremont. So I had some issues or the other with all of the colleges, maybe. And I was also looking to play varsity tennis, right? So I didn't want to
Right.
go to Division 1 college. I didn't want to apply ED at least so that I have the opportunity. So
Right.
I said no to Northwestern. I said no to Dartmouth. I said no to Cornell. Pomona was not didn't seem like the right fit. I was confused between Swarthmore and Tufts, but I heard that they had a very cutthroat environment, and I wanted to go to a place which is very collaborative and not that cutthroat. So I decided to go to Tufts eventually.
That's a pretty comprehensive understanding of your thought process.
Mhm.
I think it would serve well for most of us. We've been in that position that when you're applying to your ED, instead of just choosing a very high ranking place or the best place you can get into, you should choose the best place for you. Isn't that right? That's what you taught me when I was seeking your advice when we were applying for college.
Definitely, right? Yeah. And the thing is that when you are applying to colleges, you don't think of that. When I was applying, I did think of it.
Right,
Um, I was bent on maybe eating to Northwestern, but
right,
honestly, I just went with Nirmal Uncle's gut. He told me like it was like I hadn't heard of Tufts when he told me about it. He just randomly messaged me at 4:30 one morning saying, you should look at Tufts. And my first reaction was, is it a safety school? And he said, no, it's an aspirational school. And then I looked it up and I realized it is really hard to get into. So definitely, I mean, looking back, and having so many friends who have gone to different colleges, who've all had different experiences, it's made me realize more and more that I think when I was applying to colleges and when I was in high school, I used to think of college as a destination, right? It's the
right.
cumulative effort and the result of all your 18 years of hard work. But only after getting in do you realize that it's actually your first step towards adulthood. It's when you really start facing the world, you start living independently, and there are so many other things which you go through which only happens once you arrive to college, and you really leave that life in high school behind. So after you get into college, after you spend a couple of weeks there, you'll
Yeah,
forget about what name the college has. You'll forget about what all those factors which you thought were fascinating to you while you were applying. After you get into college, it's a lot about the community, it's a lot about the professors, it's a lot about the kind of person you become. So definitely I feel fit is definitely the most important factor when you're applying to colleges, which sadly people feel is not very important. And honestly, even I did not. When someone used to tell me when I was your age that uh, don't think about fit really matters, I thought it doesn't really matter if I get into Stanford, I will find
yeah.
my fit there. But only when you come to college you realize that it's a lot more than that.
All right. And so you mentioned varsity tennis. What were some of the other extracurriculars that you did?
I'd say, I mean, tennis was definitely what I did the most, but
Okay.
most of my other activities were not as, I didn't dig as deep into any other activity if compared to tennis. I did some debate, I did some model UN, I played cricket for the school till ninth or 10th grade. But I mean, I think I'd say towards ninth or 10th grade, I really decided that I could either be the kind of guy who does 10 things and has done something in each of them, or I could be the kind of guy who focuses really deep into one thing and goes super deep into it, right? So I chose that path. So I did stuff in school, obviously, but
Okay.
none to like a state or a national level, whether it's mock parliament or model UN and stuff. I just took part in a couple of them. But apart from that, I'd say I was training 20 hours, 22 hours a week. So most of my time was spent between studying and going for tuition and I guess playing tennis.
And you ended up reaching a national level at tennis, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And what about some of the more objective statistics of your application? SAT, ACT, school marks.
I'd say like my scores were good. I was one of the better students in my class. I did have a slight dip in the beginning of 11th grade, which is true, which was I think true for all of my friends too. I think the transition from 10th to 11th grade in science especially is um, a lot more steep than students realize. So I guess all
Yeah,
of us were studying the same way we had studied in 10th grade for our tests, and our first exams made us realize that it's a lot harder. So, but
yeah.
fortunately, I had some great teachers in school who were there to help me. And yeah, I guess after having that dip, you realize how much more all of this matters. And obviously, like your 11th and 12th grades do matter significantly. So I guess after that, I went back to doing well. Yeah.
And you said 11th and 12th grades do matter a lot when it comes to your application. How much do you think the
Yeah.
SAT and subject tests matter?
Oh, so I would have a different answer looking at the last 4 months
All right.
um, because now colleges are going test optional, right? So
Right.
I think Tufts was one of the first colleges which did that. But looking at, I think after this, a lot of other colleges also joined the
Yeah,
bandwagon, and they all decided to have SATs as
almost
test
every
optional.
college now.
And exactly, and I don't think I can't think of. I remember there were three colleges for whom the subject test was mandatory, but now I don't think it's mandatory for any college. I'm not very sure on this, but um, now I think like what I loved most about the US application process was that they focused a lot on your holistic development and focused a lot on your rounded application and not and then base everything on the basis of how you performed on a particular day. And the SAT was probably the only component which measured that. And now that colleges are going test optional, I think it's going to be focused more and more around the kind of person you are and what your true passion is, because the essay, like you can do really well in your mocks, but you can end up messing the real SAT, and you can't do anything about it.
Absolutely.
So I think I really like the fact that the colleges, like now it took a pandemic for colleges to realize that, but at least now um, it's contest optional. So it's going to be focused a lot on, because they look at your grades from ninth to 12th grade, right? You can mess up
Right,
a term, but you can't mess up 8 terms. So
right.
like I'm really looking forward to seeing how um, actually it's going to be really good for the students specifically, because now they don't have to worry too much about having just one result and that being a decision of life and death for him, especially in college. Like when you in school we had one annual exams, one half yearly exam, and everything was based on that. When you come to college, you realize that you have homeworks and quizzes and stuff which all add up, so you stop caring about one particular thing. And I'm just glad to see that even in the application process, students can now start focusing on small things instead of just looking at one big exam and thinking that's what's going to define their future.
I I really like the clarity which you bring to this whole thing. And so in that regard, I'm going to ask you something else as well. So you said COVID has changed the entire situation surrounding SATs and everything else. So do you think in a
Yeah.
time like this, having a great SAT would be a very big standout in the sense that not many people will have an SAT, or will it not matter because no one cares about it anymore?
No, what I feel is, so I remember when, so like before the SAT and like subject tests, I think all of us cared a lot about AP exams, right? We were
Yes,
just told that it's something which, as like I had a few seniors who were in college, like they were telling me that it doesn't really matter. But I remember I thought, I mean, if it demonstrates academic ability, just take it. And I remember when I was visiting colleges, I asked a lot of admissions counselors this. I asked them, how much does the AP matter? How much does the subject test matter? And they said if colleges don't require it, they said, so it's probably going to be at the bottom of your pile. They won't care too much about it. It's just that if you do well in it, they can't ignore it. So they
right.
said if you have a high score, you report it because it shows you've taken a test and you've done well, but they won't base our application on that. Maybe if they can't hold it against you if not given it anymore. But if you have a high score, then you should definitely report it.
All right. And coming to the most uh, complex and probably unclear part of the application, the essays. How did you go about your own essays, and how do you think people who are applying right now, we're in the beginning of September, application season is just about to get underway. So how do you think they should start approaching their Common App and other essays before they sit to write down?
So what I might say at first might sound cliched, but it turned out to be true. Um, but I can talk from personal experience and say that when you try and convince an admissions counselor when you're writing these essays, it doesn't help. And the reason I
Okay.
say that is because I myself tried to do that, and like I spent 3 months trying to write a common app essay which would impress someone, and I couldn't end up writing one because you're writing 650 words about something which is which you care a lot about, and something significant which happened in your life. And like if you keep thinking from the eyes of an admissions counselor and keep thinking that I want to write something which the admissions counselor is going to really enjoy and is going to be impressed by, you just can't be your true self. And only
Right.
when you really start being genuine and you don't like start caring too much about what people want to see, that's when you really start introspecting about the kind of life you've had and what experiences have you had and what is it that you want to write about. like what I've realized now is that they really want to know the kind of person you are, right? Because apart from your essays, you're just a set of numbers to them, because all you have are like what all they know about you is the kind of grades you've got and the activities you've done, but they don't know the kind of person you are. And coming back to the
Right.
point where fit is the most important college, like fit is the most important factor in determining admissions. It's not only for you, right? It's also for them. So
Right.
every college has a specific culture, right? And they need to understand if you're a good fit in their culture or not. With like in top colleges, almost every like I think almost half of the students must be having great, they must be having great SAT scores, they might be having great academics. But how do you segregate? Then it boils down to the essays, not to see if your essays are impressive, just to understand the kind of person you are. And the best way to show the admissions counselor what kind of a person you are, you have to be genuine in your essays. If you try and beat around the bush and just keep writing stuff to impress people, you will not be able to be genuine about anything. Um, and like it's gonna work against you in the end. So because especially to get into top colleges, you worked so hard with everything else, and now it's like essays are really the time when you can tell them who you genuinely are. And I think it's a great process too. Like before the application essays, I never delved into myself and tried to figure out what was this one event in my life which might have changed me. And only when you start thinking deeply about it, that's when you realize that there have been certain events which have changed you. And
Right.
writing about them is great fun. Like I really enjoyed writing all my application essays. I might not have enjoyed the process, but looking back when I read them again, they really gave me a lot of clarity about the kind of person I want to be. Because only when someone external asks you what kind of a person you are and what kind of person you want to be, that's when you really start thinking about it. Otherwise, you tend to neglect it. You have so many other things going on. You don't think about it too much. So I think being
Right.
genuine, as cliched as it sounds, is extremely important.
And so before we wrap up, I want to get your take on three things. So before people apply to college, firstly, how should they end up curating a college list? Focus on rankings, focus on fit, a mix of both. What can they do at this point to perhaps beef up their resume, make themselves look good to, the admissions officer and everything? And how do they end up dealing with the rejections that everyone inevitably faces?
Okay. So wait, your first question was about I forgot. What was the first question?
Setting up a college list, like, school selection.
Okay, yeah, right, right. So for your college list, I'd say so a good place to start is definitely rankings, because
All right.
that like rankings help you break down your list to maybe 30 or something, right? So to be able to reach a long list of 25, 30 colleges, it makes sense to like look at your rankings and then try and determine what sort of an app, like by your tests and your grades what kind of an applicant you are. So it helps you better to uh, narrow down your choices that way. But once you reach that list of 30, I think it really helps to have, like, let's say an aspirational, a reach, a match, and a safety category, and then putting those colleges in that category. And that's when you really start digging deep and researching about each college, trying to so that you can try and figure out and understand the kind of culture the college might have, what kind of an environment it has, and whether it's a good fit for you or not. Like being whether it's a city, whether it's a college in a city, whether it is like a small town, whether it's a campus or not, what the size is, what the weather is, they all end up mattering a lot more than what you might imagine. So I think doing that will definitely help. What was your second question?
How to,
The resume
polish
thing, right?
your resume? Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I'd say at least when you're applying to colleges, don't care about it. None of the colleges require a resume, right? They require an activity list. And what you do in 12th grade is not your activity list. By the time you decide you want to go to college and you randomly start clubs, or you become presidents of some clubs and you start doing social service, everybody does that, but it doesn't help, because the colleges know the kind of person you are. If you don't, if you, when I, like, if you are an athlete, some aspects of that will be sparkled around your essays too. You'll inevitably end up talking about what you're most excited about, what you're most passionate about. So if you do something majorly and you're very passionate about it, colleges will understand what that is because you will display it on your own. So just doing stuff to have 10 activities on that list does not make sense. So your resume and all will matter once you come to college, but at least for the application process, uh, just knowing what you want to do and picking up a sport or picking up some passion and going really deep into it. That's what they should focus on more rather than thinking of having 10 diverse things on your activity list, which will look very impressive.
Right.
And what was your last question?
Dealing with rejection. Big one.
Oh, unfortunately, I did not face that personally. I'm very, very happy that I did not have to do it. But I think I've seen my friends deal with it, and there's no way you can deal with it. I think it's a great process in the sense that you start maturing a lot and you start realizing that like a lot of people think that I mean you tend if you do well in school you tend to think that like you've reached a certain stature and you deserve to get into these places, and then when you don't get
Right,
accepted
right,
into those
right.
colleges you think you're not good enough at all. You have this sudden feeling that you're useless and nothing's going to happen with you. And I think this is a good place for students to maybe get over it and like just because you got rejected from a college it wasn't in your hands. Whatever was in your hands was to apply to that college and give your best, and you've done that. So I think it's a good first-hand experience to have when you try really hard for something but you don't achieve it, because in school for your tests if you study super hard you'll get good grades. um,
Right.
if you are playing a sport, I think that way playing a sport also helps because like even if you train for months you cannot end up winning matches, and that teaches you to deal with failure. So it's a good experience for people to start dealing with failure. And I think only when you um, like I wouldn't want to give any advice and tell people to think that even if you get rejected don't feel that things have gone wrong and you're still worthy, because people don't feel that when you get rejected. You can have 100
Absolutely.
people telling you around you that you're still the same and nothing has changed, but that moment you feel like a devastated, you feel your life is over. So I mean I just say that only when you feel that and once you get over it will you realize that it didn't matter too much at all. So I think even if you get rejected, deal with that. And I mean, it will be difficult, but I'd say looking back, you would probably feel that it probably made you stronger, and it just made you realize that there's no one big moment which will define your life for you.
Thank you, Pranav. It was absolute pleasure.
Awesome, it was
I
great to be here.
I hope a lot of people got a lot of value out of this. Hopefully, we can do something together again soon.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So guys, that was Pranav. Thank you so much for watching. Do like this video, share and subscribe to the channel if you found that it had any value for you. Remember, you can always email us at walsoneducation@gmail.com to set up a free initial consultation, and let's see how we can help you out in your own college dream. With that, good evening, good night, good day. I will see you in another video hopefully next week.